What's happening? You want a war? Defend this village. Got it.
We're in big trouble. I sense evil ahead.
It's Pacha Jojo here with another review for you today. Welcome everybody to I Dream of Indy. No, I'm just making a joke because the mother in this game, the goddess of the earth, is Pachamama. This is Aluna, Sentinel of the Shards on the Steam PC platform that we are reviewing today. This one's also available on the consoles, and it's an action-adventure RPG, one that I've actually been looking forward to. This game takes place in 16th century Spain, and you'll be playing as Aluna, of course, who is given a shard at a very young age by her mother Pachamama that I mentioned earlier. What Aluna doesn't initially realize, however, is that this shard is very important, and it's also only just a piece of the shard. There are other pieces of it scattered across the world, and that sets her out on a greater adventure in order to try to collect them all and place them back together. But unfortunately for Aluna, there are evil forces at play here that would also like to collect these shards, and thus you'll be doing a lot of real-time action combat throughout this game, and I mean a lot of it. This is the Dynasty Warriors of action RPGs. One thing I did not know about this game going into it is that it's actually based on a popular comic book series. I guess it's not popular with me, but a lot of you folks out there perhaps are familiar. It's called The World of Aluna, and it was written by the folks that have worked on Assassin's Creed and Batman Arkham Origins. That makes perfect sense to me now, having played the game, because you will occasionally get some really great comic book style cutscenes throughout your adventure. Aluna gives you 4 different difficulty options to choose from at the beginning of the game. You can choose Story Mode, which is exactly what it sounds like. Easy mode, which has reduced amounts of the legendary loot that you can come across, the normal mode, which is the way that I played the game, and then there is a hard mode if you want to challenge yourself further. The controls aren't super complicated in this game, despite the fact that there are a lot of different skills that you can attach to certain buttons of your choosing. You'll use the face buttons and the right trigger and the right bumper in order to use these various skills. You have your basic attack, of course. The left trigger acts as the health potion button, which does actually recharge over time, so you never run out of health potions in this game, but you will have to wait for the timer to fill up once again, and then you can zoom in the camera with the D-pad, and you can access a map, that kind of thing, but nothing overly complex. The most important control here, perhaps, is the dodge roll on the right stick. You'll begin the game with a simple torch that you can bash at your enemies with, but it won't be long until you're collecting loot off of their corpses, and there's a good amount of it. This includes armor and weapons that you can equip to your character. Some of these weapons are dependent on your level, so as you level up, you can obviously equip some of the more high-end weapons. This is my experience with this combat engine. The close-range combat is not very fun at all. I opted for using more ranged weapons whenever I could, like a rifle or throwing axes. These were a lot more effective, but really the combat's not that fun in this game either way. It's all about rolling away, hitting the enemy, rolling away, hitting the enemy, and it's just wave after wave through long, drawn-out areas. This is also some of the worst AI I've come across in a game in a long time. These enemies are pretty brainless at times, or just downright cheap when they get desperate. They'll team up on you, circle about you, and you might get hung up on the environment and stuck. That's really the only way they can beat you. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that's the only way they'll beat you, because some of these enemies will resort to other cheap tactics, like reeling you in with a chain and then just killing you that way, or teleportation ground magics that can just pop up underneath you, and you can't really do all that much about it but take the damage. Sure, collecting loot and equipping new armors and weapons is cool and all, but it really doesn't matter when the combat just kinda, well, for lack of a better word, stinks. If you manage to get through these long, drawn-out areas, you will come across, I guess what you could call villages or towns, where you can buy new weapons as well, but there's plenty of loot to be collected anyways, and there's so many freaking enemies that you're not really going to need to purchase anything. You'll collect so much along the way, it's just honestly boring. This is more or less how Aluna plays out. Go through a long, boring area, kill the same enemies over and over again with the same tactics, no real strategy involved here, get to a village, and perhaps maybe buy something if you really want to, and then go through it all again. It ends up being a game that really struggled to hold my interest, and honestly, I caught myself yawning on more than one occasion. Not really a good sign. And graphically, the presentation doesn't really do much to draw you in either. It's not a terrible looking game, and again, those comic book cutscenes are wonderful actually, but the environments are very stagnant, I would say. The water effects are not impressive at all. Nothing moves when you walk through it. It all feels very stale, and the animations in general are pretty weak in this game. The enemies kind of are stiffly moving about, and so too is your character. I just was not the biggest fan of the look of this game. I feel like there's some nice material to work with that they just kind of squandered. Sadly, I also ran into quite a few glitches throughout my time with Aluna. Enemies would just disappear at times out of nowhere, or they would be stuck in place and they couldn't move at all, and I could just hit them with axes repeatedly until they were dead. So yeah, a few bugs here or there as well. Nothing game-breaking that I came across, but still kind of annoying. I do have to say though, the composer has done his job here. Yeah, the voice acting is pretty weak actually. I didn't really feel invested with any of these characters at all, but at least the soundtrack is well done. There's some great percussion across it, some wonderful melodies as well. It's fitting for the different settings that you're in, so yeah, I can't complain on the sound front too much outside of some pretty, not so good voice acting. Aluna is a long game with 25 hours plus of gameplay, but I don't see it holding your interest for that long. There's a limited skill tree that's kind of boring to go through. The combat is endless in this game and just gets nauseating after a while. The environments aren't that exciting, and the story doesn't do much to bring it all together. I think this game could have done with a lot more variety outside of wave after wave of enemies slowly crawling to the next destination. Maybe more side quests scattered here or there, or maybe some more interactive moments with puzzles or something like that. I'm not even the biggest puzzle fan, but I was begging for them at times. It's just annoying and it's slow and it's a boring game, unfortunately. I just cannot recommend Aluna Sentinel of the Shards unless you're really desperate to play a new action-adventure RPG.
This could be it.
Thank you so much for watching the latest video from I Dream of Indie. We would now like to take a moment to thank our great indie warriors who support us through channel memberships. Mitchell Hall, Kevilo, Bunny, Bill TCAS, Christian Cruz, Strict9, Rosie Syntax, Chris Jackson, Nathan Moore, Peach, Adriana Amato, CJR, Jesse, Falco Lombardi, C Coil, and Skepticism. Thank you for all you do for independent games developers, publishers, and for I Dream of Indie. Everybody else, head down to the description box below, or if you really want to defeat that echo chamber, go to idreamofindie.com.